And so we come to the first portion of the Old Testament overview, what I've called the dawn of history. And this really is Genesis chapter 1 to chapter 11. Now, because you're going to be studying Genesis, I'm not going to take too much time with this, but just to say, the way to think of this, or a helpful way to think of this, is to think of the main four events we have in Genesis 1 through 11. And that is, of course, creation, the beauty of God's creation, where he made everything good, as we have said. And then the tragedy of the fall, when humanity in the person of Adam and Eve rebel against the goodness and the wise ways of God. And then sin multiplying until the thoughts of man were, according to Genesis 6, towards violence, so much that God stepped in and in a sense began again. The flood is like creation in reverse, but then there's this beginning again with the family of Noah, and then we see again man rebelling against God in the Tower of Babel. Now, there's much more to say about this portion, but you will be studying it with Wilrens Hornstra as you engage in Genesis. And so that's all I say about this portion now. Just to say that we have the map here of the dawn of history. It would seem that this was the place of the drama, Mesopotamia, with the two rivers. Now Genesis speaks about 4 rivers, and only 2 of them do we have today, the Tigris and the Euphrates. One thing that I want to just mention as you reflect, and you will do this of course in your study on Genesis, and that is how important the book of Genesis is for our worldview. Even in Genesis we get an indication of God being a Trinity, or the Godhead. It says, doesn't it, in chapter 1, let us make man in our image. And here we see that it was a God of relationship that had known a loving relationship from all eternity, that opened out that relationship to create humanity, indeed, so that more love could be expressed. We see creation is good. This physical world is good, and there's purpose, and that purpose is to be in relationship with the living God. We find that time is linear. There's an unfolding of time. It's not circular as in the worldview of Hinduism, but indeed there's a direction. And the fact that time is something that hasn't been forever. Indeed, it wasn't there until God said it began with the created order and creating the heavens and the earth. And then we have humanity, that we're distinct from animals, we're in the image of God, and all that means. That the distinctions between gender were God-inspired and were good, because Adam was incomplete without Eve, and they stand side by side in the purposes of God. And sin, our world is fallen, it's not as it should be, and therefore things happen that shouldn't happen, and it's a consequence of a fallen world. And many other things too we can see as we understand Genesis. Is such an important book for us to help us see the world from a biblical perspective.